Welcome to Clarity, a podcast powered by the Thomson Reuters Institute. I'm Zach Warren, the Institute's Technology and Innovation Insights lead. In each episode, we dive deep into a single question from decision makers and thought leaders from legal, corporate, tax accounting and audit, and government communities. In today's episode, we discuss the big question: how do we encourage confidence in the court in the current geopolitical climate? You don't need an in-depth poll to see that public opinion on the U.S. court system has shifted in recent years. Today, judges across all levels face concerns about partisan influence, questions of accessibility and transparency, and skepticism about the fairness of the legal system as a whole. And this is amplified by social media and 24-hour news cycles, which have changed the way court decisions are perceived and discussed by the public. But that doesn't mean that faith in the judicial system is lost forever. Today, TRI's Rabia Butler speaks with Judge Mark Pfeiffer of the Missouri Court of Appeals about the factors contributing to reduced confidence in the court, how these dynamics might shape the future of global governance, and the pathway to restoring trust in courts.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, and welcome. In an era where institutional trust is dwindling, the judiciary is no exception. The courts, once considered the strongholds of impartiality and fairness, are facing growing scrutiny and skepticism from the public. What is causing this erosion of confidence? Is it a perceived influence of partisan politics? Is it inconsistent application of justice? Or is there something more complex at play? Today, we're here with Judge Pfeiffer to dissect the intricacies of public trust in the judicial system. We'll explore multifaceted factors contributing to the crisis of confidence, from the role of social media, the 24-hour news cycle, or more accessibility, transparency, and accountability. Together, we'll examine the pressing questions of our time as it relates to the judicial system. Judge Pfeiffer hails from Missouri and has been on the bench since 2009. While he hasn't seen everything, he has seen more than enough to offer a very unique perspective from the bench. The question is, who's judging who? While the judges are providing justice, the public is judging the justices. Welcome, Judge Pfeiffer.
Thank you, Rabia. I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy that you mentioned the phrase, who's judging who. I think sometimes there is this notion that judges sit on a throne and they expect the world to serve them. And I'm here to tell you that I don't believe that that is in any way, shape, or form the type of judges that I work with on a day in and day out basis. We know that we serve the public. We serve the cities, the counties, the state, and the country that we hail from. And the fact of the matter is, we all see the polling, and the data reflects that the public's confidence in the judicial branch today is a lower version of confidence than the public has ever had. And we have to ask ourselves, as judges and members of the judiciary, why is that happening? What can we do to shed light upon what we do on a day in and day out basis that will give the public more confidence in what we do? You mentioned politics. A few weeks ago, my wife and I celebrated our 36th wedding anniversary. And she reminded me that some 36 plus years ago, it wasn't in our wedding vows, but it was in our engagement vows. And one of those vows was, do you promise that during the course of our marriage, you will never be a politician? Because I don't want to be in a political world. I don't want to be a part of politics that way. We will vote whenever we have an opportunity to vote. And we are entitled to have our opinions about politicians, but I don't want you to be a politician. And I'm happy to report that I have kept that vow. I can tell you without the shadow of a doubt that there has never been a time in the over 16 years that I have been a judge at the Missouri Court of Appeals has politics played any role in any way, shape, or form in any discussion that I've had with any of my colleagues, and in the words that have made their way into the opinion that becomes the precedent on the case that we are working on. And frankly, I think being able to see that on the inside I think I was surprised. I think I thought that politics were a bit, at least a bit and part of what judges do. And I'm here to tell you, not at our court. Absolutely not at our court.
That's
And so the
absolutely great
eh,
to hear. So, what I want to try to do today is to provide clarity on the question what factors are contributing to or undermining the confidence in the court, and how might these dynamics shape the future of global governance. So, let's jump into it a little bit. What factors, from your perspective, are most concerning as the public relates to the court?
well, one of the things that I think about is who is the public judging when they look at the judicial branch? Who? And I think it's hard to avoid the fact that the public is judging the highest court in our land. They are the face of the judicial branch of government in our country, and that's the Supreme Court of the United States. And whether that court likes it or not, that is a court and that is an institution that I think a lot of people feel has become politicized, depending upon which president has appointed which judge on the Supreme Court. And while I can't be a part of solving any problems for that court, I think they are making every effort. I think Chief Justice Roberts, he sees the same newspapers and the same polls that all of us see, and I know that he wants to make his court transparent, and I think he wants to make his court one that the public can be proud of once again. But I want to say this: I serve in a court that is in the state courts system. We obviously have two branches of the judicial branch in our country, the state branch and the federal branch. Last year in 2024, 75 million cases were brought to a conclusion in the state court system. In the federal court system, there were 500,000. Now, if you do the math on that, the state court system is deciding and ruling upon issues that impact the daily lives of human beings 99% of the time. And so when people are thinking about what their judicial branch is, I wish people would think a little bit more about what their local judges are. Because those local judges in the county circuit courts, uh, in my court, the Missouri Court of Appeals, in the Missouri Supreme Court, or the Wisconsin Supreme Court, or the Texas Supreme Court, those courts, those state courts, are deciding the vast majority of issues that impact your lives. And I think that we have a system that, while it's not perfect, I think Churchill was the one that said about democracy, it's the worst form of government except for all the others. And I think the same could probably be said about our form of justice in this country. It might be the worst form of justice there is, except for all the others. And it's why all the other countries, certainly smaller countries, want us to come to their country and explain how we do it. They want our system of justice, they want our system of checks and balances. And I do want to talk about checks and balances because we do have a trial court system where individuals, litigants, can disagree with one another and have a judge at the trial court level decide that issue, or a jury. And very few countries have a jury system. I love that about the system that we have in our country. But if the parties believe, one of the parties believes that there is an error that has occurred, that either the trial judge permitted some evidence in that shouldn't have been permitted, or kept some out that should have been brought in, or there's some other legal argument that something went wrong with the jury or the judge at the trial court level, you have an automatic right in this country to appeal to a court of appeals. And that is the court that I serve on. And on that court, we have 11 judges in my particular district of the Missouri Court of Appeals, which is the Western District. It sits in Kansas City, Missouri. And we split into groups of three to digest every single transcript and piece of evidence and record that goes into that trial proceeding at the trial court level. And then we thoroughly evaluate whether we believe some form of legal error has occurred. The beauty of my court, I think, is that it's not just one judge making a review decision, and it's not three. In our court, once we have developed an opinion that we think answers the question, and our division of three judges believes that this opinion accurately declares the law, then we circulate that draft opinion to the other eight judges on my court. And so, what gives me confidence then, if my name is going to be attached as the authoring judge on an opinion, what gives me confidence about that opinion is that 10 people at my court that are much smarter than me have graded my homework, have looked at what the words on the piece of paper say, and that gives me confidence then to hand that opinion down on behalf of our court. And then, of course, that's not the end. If litigants believe that we have gotten it wrong at our court, in the state of Missouri, there is an opportunity to request that our Missouri Supreme Court, a court of 7 judges, review our discussion about the law on that topic. And by the way, that's not the end either. Though it does not happen very frequently that a state court case makes its way all the way to the Supreme Court of the United States, it happens several times a year. And so we have an amazing, I think, an amazing checks and balances system that I think should give members of the public confidence in what is happening in response to their case, their problem, their issue.
So you make amazing points about checks and balances, and it really does seem that that's kind of the crux of creating this fair and balanced system. But we obviously have a system that has less incompetence. What, in addition to the political issues, do you think has eroded the sense of trust and fairness in the courts? And I guess we can start with the state courts.
I think sometimes, and this is one of the things that we do as judges when we go to continuing education, and yes, we do. We know we haven't figured it all out. And so we go to continuing education seminars where we can learn how to be better judges. But I think one of the things that we can do to be better judges is to pay homage to the notion that I think life has a fork in the road. No matter who you are, no matter what you do, whether you're a lawyer, whether you're a judge, whether you're an accountant, whether you're a plumber, whether you're fill in the blank. At some point in time in your life, there is a divergence in that road, and you have to choose to serve others or to serve your ego. And I think that our profession, and when I say that, the legal profession, is like every other profession. And there are some lawyers and there are some judges that have chosen to serve themselves. And that is more important to that person than getting the law right. And while I don't have a single one of those kinds of judges that I get to work with on a day in and day out basis, I know that it exists. I know that that's out there. And when I tell you that there's 75 million cases coming through the state court system in our country, and probably more than that every year, that number is going up and up and up. The fact of the matter is that the first time a member of the public has an interaction with the judicial system is in that first proceeding before a trial judge. It may be a traffic ticket. It may be small claims court. It may be a much bigger dispute than that. But when I talk to the trial judges of the world that are in my footprint in the state of Missouri, I often say to them, you have a tougher job than I do. By the time the issues come to the Court of Appeals, it is lawyers appearing in front of us, not witnesses, not litigants. And it is lawyers that are making legal arguments. But when trial judges are dealing with cases, they are the face of the judicial branch. And the way they treat the human beings that come into their courtroom is reflective of the judicial branch. And it's why I think it's such a hard job, because trial judges are human beings, and sometimes they've got things going on in their personal lives that are distracting them from the ability to show humility on the bench. We all have bad days. But when a trial judge has a docket of 50 cases that on a motion docket, and they're going through 50 different cases, and that docket has 50 different groups of members of the public that are trying to get their dispute resolved, and that judge has a bad day, and that judge says some things that they might not ordinarily say, think of all of the people and the ripple effect that that bad day has, with regard to members of the public. They feel like this courtroom, this judicial branch, did not want to be there and did not want their case to be there and did not want them to be heard. And while I think that nothing could be further from the truth, I'm proud of the trial judges, certainly the trial judges that we have in the state of Missouri. I get that we're all human and we're all bound to have bad days. But people, when they go on social media, they don't want to go on social media to say, I felt like I was treated fairly today in a courtroom. They want to go on social media to say, you cannot believe how utterly mean this judge was to me and to other litigants that were in that judge's courtroom. And that's the thing that we have to be better at. We have to be better at respecting human beings that come before us. We have to be better at demonstrating a humility, and we have to be better at showing that we get that our role is to serve them, not the other way around.
So basically, I think one of the things you're saying is in a soundbite society, we are making these snap judgments, and that is sort of perpetuating this negative image of the judiciary.
And I think that, again, we live in this world where every snapshot becomes fill in the blank, an Instagram, or it becomes some other version of social media, TikTok or whatever. My kids make fun of me because I'm pretty socially media incompetent, but it's out there and we can't ignore it. And now people can use artificial intelligence to make their point. If they're wanting to make fun of the judicial branch, they can use various elements of AI to assist them in doing so. And I just think that all of us as members of the judiciary, we just have to be conscientious of it. And I think the best way to do that is to, I always say, I hope that today I am a better version of myself than I was yesterday. And I hope that tomorrow I'm a better version of myself than I am today. If we're not trying to be better as human beings, just because we happen to have the title as judge, then how are we going to be better at serving human beings, which is what our job is? And so I think the best thing that judges can do is to work on being better human beings.
That's a really profound thought. I think one of the things that I think about when I look at the system of justice and how people are tending to not really trust it is this idea that somehow politics and political ideology tends to govern judicial decision making. You made the point that that's not the case in your appellate court, or not something that you've experienced or dealt with firsthand, but other than the social media sound bites, what do you think is the reason that the public has this perception that judges are innately political or innately partisan? and how they believe it impacts the overall judicial proceeding.
Well, because I think more so today than in a world 25 years ago, I think politicians do feel that they have a right and a responsibility in some circumstances to criticize the judicial branch, to attempt to influence the judicial branch. Um, and again, I do think that when members of the public, when they think about what is the judicial branch, they think about the Supreme Court of the United States and in many respects the federal system, because those are the sound bites coming from DC. Those are the politicians at the federal level seem to have a louder voice and a larger pulpit from which to make their commentary about the judicial branch. Um, but when politicians make promises about, the types of individuals that they are going to put on the bench, um, when it goes beyond, I want to put the smartest and the brightest human beings that happen to have a law degree on the bench, and it becomes more of a societal litmus test, I'm going to know before I appoint them what their viewpoint is on fill in the blank, whatever the important issue is to that administration, then I think then I think there is room for the public to feel like, what about the oath that you take to the Constitution? Shouldn't that oath that you take to the Constitution mean more than a political litmus test from a politician who is in a position to get you appointed as a judge? And so I think that when social media broadcasts that, there's fair criticism. I do think that something happens when you take that oath. When you have devoted yourself to the time that it takes and the energy that it takes to go to law school, and some people like you, Rabia, did so while you had a full-time job. And so you know the level of commitment that you made to this notion of a constitution guiding the principles of justice in our country. When you do that, it matters to you. You might not think it matters to you. Some might say it doesn't matter to you, but I think it does matter. When you take that oath as a judge to serve the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution sometimes of the state that you are either elected to or appointed to, I do think there is something transformational that happens. And I do think that what you've seen is where some of the politicians have been grumpy is when they thought that a judge was going to rule a certain way because it was the political viewpoint that that politician had. But the fact of the matter is, I think that the vast, vast majority of judges on the federal and state side of our judicial branch take their oath seriously. And when they get into that position where they have to make a decision, they look to the Constitution. And it's fair to disagree about what the Constitution says, what it means. That's fair debate. But I think that the public should see and and feel confidence in a judicial branch that is not simply doing the work of the politician that helped them get appointed. Because I see it every day. It's not fancy news. I mean, the news sources want to make a big deal out of certain decisions. What they don't want to do is say, gosh, the judicial branch, they've taken an oath to follow the Constitution, and that's what they're doing. They disagree about it, but that's what I think our judicial branch is supposed to be about. We should have reasonable disagreement about what the law is. And hopefully, we're trying to find a consensus amongst our colleagues.
So, with everything that we've discussed, how do we restore the public's belief that the court will be fair and balanced in its decision making, despite whatever political situation is going on?
I think the public, to me, I think the public needs to feel like the people that are making these decisions. Yeah, we want them to be smart people that went to law school and maybe were the top of their class and maybe were the top of their profession. Sure, that all makes sense to us. But we want these to be people that are real to us. We want to feel like these are members of our community that, yes, they have been tasked with declaring the law as it is applied to the facts of any given situation, but they're real people. I think I've told you before that one of the things that I like to do to decompress and to just think sometimes about life, sometimes about the cases that I'm juggling in my chambers. We have an abandoned railroad track that has in the state of Missouri that has been turned into a trail system, and it's pretty close to where I live, and so I am able to jump on my bicycle and get good rides in. Today there was a storm that was coming, and I looked at my radar on my phone and realized I better get going. I got to get home. And I just thought it was humorous that I like to listen to music, and I've got a pretty wide range of musicians on my playlist. And as it started to rain and I was pedaling as fast as I could to get home, the Louis B. Armstrong song "We Have All the Time in the World" came on. And I thought, how ironic is that? I need to get home. But it made me think as we were getting ready for this podcast. I'm at that season of life in my career where I've served as the leader of my court. I've served as a leader of a national organization of chief judges from all over the country. I've had my opportunity to lead, and now it's my time to cheer for those judges at my court and nationally who are leading the court system in the judicial branch. But with all the time that I have left, which of course tomorrow is not promised, what I want to do is shed light on the real people who have real things going on in their lives, who happen to wear a black robe when they go to work. And I love the thing. One of the things I love about my court is that I feel like my court resembles the community that we serve. And sometimes I think that is a problem. The people that sit on that bench, those 11 people at that court, none of them look like me. And that can be a problem. And I think that over the course of time, our court came into existence in 1885. And it took 100 years before the first woman became a judge on our court. And I'm, on the one hand, sad to say that it took 100 years for that to happen at our court. On the other hand, I'm happy to say that that person who became the first female judge at the Missouri Court of Appeals and the first female judge of the Missouri Supreme Court and the first Chief Justice of the Missouri Supreme Court that was a female happened to be a very close friend of mine by way of the fact that she lived in Columbia, Missouri, and her children were the same age as me, or some of them were, and I got to know her over the course of time. And what I always remembered about her was that she was not just this amazing trailblazer. She was somebody that when I was 12 years old and in her family home, she was serving milk and cookies to the table because she was a real person, and she was always a real person. She was a real person when she was a judge at the Missouri Court of Appeals. She was a real person when she was the Chief Justice of the Missouri Supreme Court. She never stopped being a genuine, real person who understood that we've got lots of things going on in our lives as human beings. We're raising children, or we're trying to be a good uncle or a good aunt, or we're trying to be a good pet owner. I know you've got cats and we've got dogs at our place. That could be another debate on a later date. But at the end of the day, our lives are not that much different than the people that we're serving. And I think that judges need to do a better job of showing the public that, that we are no different than you, that some of the tragedies that come to your doorstep, they come to our doorstep as well. And that some of the bad days that you have, we have those bad days too. And that while our job is to judge the law, our job is to declare the law, we are not judging you as a human being. We are not casting stones at you because we know that we have other stones that could be cast upon us because we are human beings that are flawed as well. It's why any system, democracy or our system of justice in the country, it's why Winston Churchill could say it was the worst form of government, because ultimately any form of government involves human beings.
Hmm.
Democracy just happens to be the best way to bring human beings together, to do it in a way that truly serves others instead of self. And I believe that our judicial branch has been set up in a way in which, when it is done well, the judges and the judicial branch are serving the citizens, not the other way around. And we just need to do a better job as judges of letting down our guard and letting people see us and letting people see who we are and letting people see that we're not afraid to say that we are flawed and we make mistakes. And that's why we have to have a checks and balances system in our system of justice.
I think that transparency is a fantastic idea, and I hope that we have provided some clarity as to the need for transparency and how it will help us to restore faith and confidence in our judiciary. So, thank you everyone for listening today, and we hope you have a great one.
Thank you, Judge Pfeiffer and Rabia, for your insights. And as Judge Pfeiffer notes, there are avenues to increasing confidence in courts, but it will require an active hand. From transparency and accountability to community engagement and judicial reforms, restoring public trust in the judicial system means work. But in the current geopolitical climate, I can think of few other causes more worthy of investing the time and effort. Thank you as always for joining us for Clarity, powered by the Thomson Reuters Institute. You can follow or subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform, and don't forget to share with your colleagues and leave a 5-star review. For more data-driven analysis of today's professional services market and in-depth conversations with industry thought leaders, please visit us online at thomsonreuters.com/institute and follow us on LinkedIn under the Thomson Reuters Institute. Clarity is a production of Thomson Reuters, copyright Thomson Reuters 2025.